All right. Hoje estamos falando sobre o perfect tense. Talvez o conceito mais confuso para qualquer pessoa que está aprendendo inglês, não só brasileiros, sino para alguém da China, da Espanha. Eu acho que é um conceito confuso porque parece estranho, né? Parece estranho de dizer I have, for example, I have had that food before. I have had Chinese food before. It's weird, right? I have had, like, eu tive ter. What's happening? I don't get it. So it can be strange for sure. But today I want to talk about this and try to deliver it in a very simple way. So, imagino que nós temos uma variedade dos níveis aqui, like, talvez pessoas no nível básico, e eu sei que algumas de vocês têm nível mais alto. So, eu vou tentar entregar em uma maneira que todo mundo pode entender. So here we go. The perfect tense can be an intimidating concept for people learning English. But in these lessons, we are going to simplify this concept and you'll start to become more comfortable using the perfect tense. In this introduction, we will learn why we use the perfect tense, the structures for the perfect tense, and we'll study some examples. So I think this is a very good place to start right here. Why do we use the perfect tense? Why? What's the point? What's the reason? And the reason is to talk about time. That is, se você tem qualquer dúvida sobre a razão que nós usamos the perfect tense em inglês, sempre pense no fato que nós usamos para dar mais informação sobre tempo. That's the reason. So when people use the perfect tense, it's to give more information about time. So here we have an example. I have lived in Los Angeles for 3 years. So I have lived in Los Angeles for 3 years. So the thing that's cool about this, the thing that's kind of like, wow, that's nice about using the perfect tense is that when you say, I have lived in Los Angeles for 3 years, the other person, the gringo, the person from the United States, the person from Australia or from England, they will automatically understand that in the past, you started living in Los Angeles. Maybe you moved to Los Angeles from Sao Paulo. Maybe you moved to Los Angeles from some city in Brazil. And then for 3 years, until the present time, until this moment, until the present, it's continuing, you live in Los Angeles. So that is the reason why we use the present perfect tense. So this sentence, I have lived in Los Angeles, is the present perfect tense. And you will know it's the present perfect tense because have is in the present. So when you see the verb either have or had, if it's have, then we're using the present perfect tense. If it's had, o passado, como tive or tinha, that's the past perfect tense. E vamos falar sobre a diferença em minutinho. So that's the first idea, is that we use the perfect tenses to give more information about time. E quando você usa, a outra pessoa vai entender sobre o tempo que você está descrevendo por causa da forma do perfect tense que você usou. Okay? So, any questions? Any questions right now? Does anybody have a question? Nope. Good. If you have one, just Okay, look, there we go. No, good, cool. All right. If you have one, put it in the chat. Em qualquer minuto, se você tem uma pergunta, coloque no chat e aí eu vou responder. So, okay, cool. All right, now let's continue. I need to make this skinny again. All right. I'm not a Zoom expert. I need to learn Zoom a little bit better, but I'm doing okay. So, all right. So now we're looking at the structure. So nesse ponto, você não precisa tentar entender, like, por que você tem dois have, or have e had? Por que você está usando o verbo ter duas vezes? Você não precisa pensar nisso. Você simplesmente precisa aceitar que isso é a forma. Então, não dá para perguntar por quê? Por quê? Simplesmente é. Por que o céu é azul? Por que chuva às vezes? Porque é natural. Isso acontece com línguas às vezes. Então, the structure, like we talked about. So here's the present perfect tense. I have, and then the past participle verb. Vamos conversar sobre o past participle in momento. Or the past perfect tense. So these are the two versions of the perfect tense that we are talking about. There's actually a future perfect tense. Também tem future perfect tense, mas nós não vamos conversar sobre o future perfect. E é raramente usado o future perfect. Então, você não precisa se ocupar muito sobre o future perfect tense. Mas agora temos o past perfect and the present perfect. And com cada, if you're using the past perfect, it's had, o verbo no passado, had, so tive or tinha, and then the past participle verb, and we'll talk about the past participle in one moment. And if you're using the present perfect tense, it's have, and then the past participle verb. That's the structure. That's it. So, não tem surpresas com a estrutura. É sempre assim. Have or had, past participle. Fechou. So, and here are two examples. I had lived in Spain for 10 years, and I have lived in Spain for 10 years. So, em momento, primeiro vamos falar sobre o past participle e o que é o past participle. E aí vamos aprender sobre por que nós usamos o past perfect tense or o present perfect tense. Ok? Mas vamos falar sobre o past participle. Se você tem qualquer pergunta sobre a estrutura, deixa no... Ok, então a estruturação é sempre had lived. Se você está falando sobre o lugar onde você mora ou morou, isso. So, I had lived, for example, about me, I had lived in San Diego. I had lived in San Diego, California for 2 years. So, e uma pré-visualização sobre por que nós usamos o past perfect tense. Nós usamos o past perfect tense para falar sobre algo que começou no passado e também terminou no passado. Okay? So if I say I had lived in San Diego for 2 years, a outra pessoa vai entender que no passado eu comecei morar em San Diego e aí parou. Provavelmente eu me mudei para uma nova cidade. So, but yes, to answer your question, that's the structure. I had lived or I have lived. If I still live in San Diego, if I'm living in San Diego right now, for example, or Tucson. Right now I live in Tucson, Arizona. I have lived in Tucson, Arizona for a year, mais ou menos. So, all right, that's just a little preview, pré-visualização. Let's talk about the past participle verb. So, the past participle verb, meio chato esse verbo, but it's okay. So the past participle verb, and sometimes it's called the third column. Like você vai ouvir like o verbo da terceira coluna. So like the third column verb, or the third column version, because we have like the present, and then we have the simple past, and then we have the past participle. Eu não sei quem inventou o past participle, porque parece desnecessário, mas existe até agora, então precisamos usar com os perfect tenses. Principalmente você usa nos perfect tenses. Tem mais uma situação quando você vai usar o past participle verb, mas em geral você não precisa usar. Você só usa com os perfect tenses e também numa outra situação que é raro e não vou explicar agora. Mas em geral você não precisa usar muito os past participles. So here are some examples. So to, like, and liked. So here's like the present tense, here's the normal past tense, and then here is the past participle. You could also say simple past, by the way. You could also call it simple past. I just put normal past here. So to watch, watched, and watched. So do you see a pattern here that the normal past and the past participle are the same? Sometimes they're the same. Sometimes there's no difference between the past participle and the normal past. So that's something to remember. Now here we are going to see a difference. We see did, so the verb do, fazer, and then we have did, the past tense version, and then the past participle is different. It's done. So I had done my homework before class. Eu já fiz meu dever de casa, or minha dever de casa antes da aula. So using the past perfect, I had done my homework before class. I had done my homework before class. So yes, Portuguese is it can be a challenge. 3 types of verbs. We can live without the past participle. I 100% agree with that, Valisan. I 100% agree. We should banir o past participle, deixar o past participle, but we have to use it. So, all right, eat, ate, eaten. So eat, ate, eaten. And then the last one, and this one is important. This one is more important, I would say, is the verb to be, because we use the verb to be more frequently. So it's one it's good to memorize, the verb to be. So we have the verb to be. There's 2 versions of like the normal past tense. There's was and were, and then the past participle is been. So again, I have been to Italy 2 times. So, and like the example that I explained during the beginning of the class, if you want to say, eu já conheci Rio Grande do Sul, I have already been to Rio Grande do Sul. Been is the past participle of the verb to be. So as you can see, some verbs have the same form, liked, liked. Some verbs have different forms, did, done. okay? And then this is important. You know, this little part here is important. There's no rule, okay? Não tem regra que vai te mostrar ou que vai te mostrar que nessa situação o verbo tem uma versão diferente no past participle e nessa situação o verbo tem, you know, a mesma forma. Infelizmente, não tem uma regrinha para te ajudar. Simplesmente você precisa memorizar, decorar. So, isso é o processo. Com esse parte do past participle, você precisa memorizar as versões. Okay? E nesse documento, eu incluí esse link para um site onde você pode colocar o verbo e vai te mostrar qualquer versão. So like it will show you the present tense, the past tense, the simple past tense, and also the past participle. Então, uma ferramenta útil para você, se você quer, pesquisar, aprender as versões diferentes para cada verbo. All right. Cool. Any questions? If you have any questions, put it in the chat. So now we are getting to tenho uma frase, uma expressão para vocês. So in English. So I'm going to say we are getting to the meat and potatoes. So in English, when you say like this is the meat and potatoes, like it's like saying this is the important part. So it's like when you're saying like estamos chegando para o carne as batatas. It's like when you're going to start talking about the part that's like most important, that's the meat and potatoes of the conversation. So that's a little expressão inglesa. Okay, so when to use the past perfect tense, when to use the present perfect tense. This is the big idea. E nós já conversamos pouco sobre a situação, mas agora nós temos esse gráfico para ajudar. So, let's talk about the past perfect tense first. The past perfect tense, which is had plus the past participle, is used to communicate something that started in the past and also ended in the past. It's over. Já acabou. I had lived in San Diego for 2 years. I had lived in Sao Paulo for 1 year. So if you say that, if you're talking to somebody at a bar or at a cafe in the United States, you're having a little bate-papo, you have your drink. Oh, this is so great. Yeah, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Sao Paulo. That's cool. Very nice. Yeah, I had lived in Sao Paulo for a year, but now I live in New York. And then automaticamente a outra pessoa vai entender, legal, ela morou em São Paulo no passado por ano e agora ela mora aqui em Nova York. Okay? Cool. Everybody good? Does everybody understand this? Let's see, thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if it makes sense. Yes, good, beautiful. All right, cool. So here's the kind of like little visualization for you. You can see like the orange part is the present, and then there's the past here in purple, and the future is blue. And this little red line represents the past perfect tense. It started in the past and it also ended in the past. Cool. All right. So let's move on to the present perfect. So the present perfect have, so ter, no presente, and the past participle is used to communicate something that started in the past and continues until now, until the present moment. It's still happening, okay? So we all of us, todos nós, have been on this call for 30 minutes. It's about 30 minutes. So where is it? We have been on this Zoom call for 30 minutes. So in the past, the Zoom call started, and until this moment, we're still here. It's still happening. So this is a perfect moment to use the perfect tense. Eu não pensei nisso antes. Eu não pensei sobre usar essa frase, but this is a perfect moment to use the perfect tense, present perfect tense. So you can see here that here, this orange line is the present, and the red, it's continuing until the present moment. So that's the present perfect tense. So here's a little comparison. Here's a situation where we can look at both. So what is this? Get out of there. All right, there we go. So it won't, hold on, trying to get this centered. There we go. Calm. All right. So I had worked, here's the two example sentences. I had worked in sales for 20 years, or I have worked in sales for 20 years. If you don't know sales, it's vendas. So, eu trabalhei com vendas por 20 anos in Portuguese. So if we say I had worked in sales for 20 years, that means in the past, 20 years ago, or sometime in the past, I started working in sales, and then it ended in the past. Maybe I decided to retire, eu aposentei, or maybe I started doing something different. I started working in marketing, or I started working as a lawyer. I changed my career. It could be that too. So that's I had worked in sales. I have worked in sales means that I'm still doing it until today. Until today, I'm still knocking on doors, trying to sell something. Hey, you like this water bottle? Beautiful, right? I'm still working in sales. So I have worked in sales for 20 years. It's continuing until the present if we use the present perfect tense. So that's just a little kind of comparison there. So those are two separate situations or two examples of using the perfect tenses. So, pegadinha, uma pegadinha sobre o perfect tense, because imagino que muitos de vocês estão entendendo agora. Isso não é melzinha na chupeta, Thomas. Eu não tenho problema em entender esse conceito. Então, e isso é bom, porque o primeiro passo é entender a ideia principal, que é a ideia que estamos conversando, em que estamos conversando agora, sobre tempo, so about time. But it can be confusing sometimes. Sometimes you're talking to somebody, sometimes you're talking to a gringo, and they use the perfect tense, but it's like, why? Why did you use it in that situation? That it doesn't seem necessary, or it doesn't seem right. So there can be confusing situations with the perfect tense. So let's talk about one of them. So one reason why the perfect tense can create confusion is because in some situations, you can use both. You can use, você pode usar o simple past, ou você pode usar o present perfect. So, exemplo, I saw the movie, or I have seen the movie. Os dois são comuns, os dois são normais para uma pessoa dizer em inglês. So you could say, I saw the movie, or I have seen the movie. And they're both correct. So, algo que você precisa aceitar é que em algumas situações você pode usar os dois, o simple past or o present perfect. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Let's go down here. So here's a description. We saw the movie. We have seen the movie. So the simple past is here in the column on the left, and then present perfect is here. So in this part, the simple past would be normal to use. Like it would be completely normal. And then it would all, like, I put a little note here, like it would also be common to like add a little more information. So we saw the movie last weekend. So it's not necessary. Like you can say we saw the movie, and that's correct. So that's the simple past. Pretty, like, isso é como português. Like a mesma forma que você falaria eu já vi o filme, traduza pé da letra para inglês. Eu já vi o filme, or eu vi o filme, I saw the movie, pé da letra. If we're using present perfect, it's a little different. Então, você precisa pensar numa maneira like filosófica agora. So, o fato que se nós já vemos o filme, nós não podemos reversar esse fato. Like, we cannot go back in time and like unwatch the movie. Quando você vê o filme, isso é real, isso é a verdade para o resto da sua vida. Entendeu? Todo mundo? Yes? Yes? Good? Okay. If no, se não, coloque no chat, ok? Eu vou explicar mais. Mas isso é um ponto importante para lembrar, que com muitas coisas, e eu vou fazer mais um exemplo, Ayla, mas like, se você acha nesse ponto, é verdade. Se você fala, I have eaten at that restaurant, for example. I have eaten at that restaurant. You can also say, I ate at that restaurant. Você pode usar o simple past ou o present perfect. E você pode usar o present perfect because you cannot go back in time and reverse something. Quando você comeu naquele restaurante, isso continua para sempre, para sua vida inteira. Você não pode reversar algo que você fez no passado. Então, seguindo o formato do present perfect, o evento aconteceu no passado e continua até o presente, para sempre. Okay? Oh, yeah. So, here is like the graph. So, in the past, no passado, você viu o filme e continua até este momento e para sempre. So, se você tem mais perguntas, coloquem no chat. Ayla, faz sentido? Mais claro agora ou não? So, vou continuar com outro exemplo. So here, isso é como uma pergunta. This is with a question. Did Frank make coffee? Frank fez o café. Did Frank make coffee? Yes, Frank made coffee. Simple past. Present perfect. Did Frank make coffee? Yes, Frank has made coffee. Pode ser os dois. Você pode usar o simple past, você pode usar o present perfect. E, de novo, nós temos a mesma situação. O Frank fez o coffee no passado, o café no passado, e esse fato é verdade para o resto do tempo. Ok? So, isso é bem like, filosófica, às vezes, quando você pensa sobre os perfect tenses, mas por isso nós podemos usar os dois, o simple perfect, o simple past, or o present perfect. Então, por isso, você pode usar os dois, e se você não entendeu, eu indico que depois essa apresentação, que você volta e olha de novo para esses exemplos. E se você ainda tem perguntas, manda para mim no direct, no Instagram ou, email, qualquer coisa. Estou aqui para esclarecer. So, when deciding between using the simple past and present perfect, if you were talking about an event that finished in the past and you don't want to focus on that the experience is continuing, this is a good opportunity to use the simple past. So, se você não precisa enfatizar o fato que o evento está continuando, você pode usar o simple past. Like, você não precisa criar mais complicação que é necessário. So, por exemplo, have you eaten at that restaurant? Você já comeu naquele restaurante? I can just say, yeah, I ate at that restaurant. Eu não preciso enfatizar que eu comi, que está continuando até agora e para sempre. Mas, se você me perguntou, are you living in Tucson? Nesse caso, eu quero e eu preciso usar o present perfect tense, porque eu preciso enfatizar o fato que até este momento é continuando. So, o fato que eu estou morando em Tucson está continuando e eu preciso, gramaticalmente, eu preciso usar o present perfect tense. Yes, I have been living in Tucson for 1 year. So, cool, good. I'm glad you guys understand. Good. All right. So a couple quick examples here. And this is past perfect and present perfect. I had studied Spanish before arriving in Mexico. So in the past, I started studying Spanish. I stopped before I arrived in Mexico. Por isso, eu vou usar o past perfect tense. O período de estudar espanhol parou antes eu cheguei no México. So I have studied Spanish for 7 years. That means I'm still studying Spanish. I started 7 years ago and I'm still studying Spanish until today. I had slept until 4 p.m. So eu estou provavelmente contando uma história para alguém. Nossa, gente, eu fiquei bêbado demais ontem e aí I had slept until 4 p.m. and then I woke up and I ate a burrito. So I'm talking about the fact that in the past I started sleeping and then until 4 p.m. I slept. And then he has slept all day. Se você fala he has slept all day, significa que até agora, até o presente, ele está ainda dormindo. Okay? And then there's a couple more. E você vai ter acesso a esse documento. Então, se você quer ler mais, você pode, depois the presentation, depois the call ends. So, eu quero continuar para o final thought, porque talvez o Zoom call vai terminar. So, eu quero fechar aqui. So, the final thought, o pensamento último. The most important point to remember when you want to give a more detailed description about time, that's the moment to use the perfect tenses. So, se você lembra uma coisa dessa apresentação, eu quero que você lembre que nós usamos os perfect tenses para falar sobre tempo. e para dar mais informação sobre período do tempo. Okay? If you want to emphasize that something started in the past and ended in the past, that's the past perfect tense. If you want to emphasize that something started in the past and continues until the present, that's the present perfect tense. I had seen the movie. I have seen the movie. I had lived in London. I have lived in London for 10 years. Okay? So, uma nota sobre estratégia agora para usar em seu dia a dia. So, I recommend that the first step with perfect tenses is simply to observe when gringos use it. Então, se você é novo com os perfect tenses, não se preocupe muito sobre usando. Claro, é bom usar e você deveria, usar quando você pode. Mas o passo primeiro que é bom é observar, perceber quando gringo está usando. That's a very good first step. If you can notice, if you can observe when a gringo says, I have studied at Harvard, or I had studied at Harvard, the University of Harvard in Massachusetts. If you can notice that, and you start to notice that on a regular basis, that's a great first step. So don't worry, if you're new with the perfect tenses, don't worry so much about using them a lot. A good first step is to just observe when somebody is using them. Okay? So that's my first recommendation. And then my second recommendation, let's see, there's a chat here real quick. Cool, good. So I'm glad you're understanding. So my other recommendation for people that are newer to using the perfect tense, or even people who have used it in the past, perfect tense. So even to people who have used it in the past, para pessoas que estão já acostumados com usando, bom exemplo é pensar no lugar onde você mora. Porque todos nós moramos em lugar. Então, é exemplo que todos nós podemos usar. So, for example, I have lived in Miami for 1 year. So, if I say this, that means I have lived in Miami for 1 year, and that's continuing until the present. Or I have lived in this apartment for 6 months. So that means that I'm currently living in this apartment and it's been 6 months. So think about where you live, guys, because all of us can use that example. That's an example that everybody in the world can use. And then the second part is that a maioria de nós já mudamos pelo menos uma vez na vida. Então, você pode usar para o past perfect. Podemos usar o present perfect para o lugar onde nós moramos agora, atualmente. E podemos usar o past perfect para o lugar onde nós moramos no passado. So, I had lived in Belo Horizonte for 22 years. Okay? Or I had lived in that house since I was a child. Then we moved last year. So if you're in the United States, you're talking to somebody, you're in a job interview, you can say, I had lived in Belo Horizonte for 22 years, e a outra pessoa vai entender automaticamente que no passado você morou em Belo Horizonte e agora você mora provavelmente naquela cidade. So, naquela cidade onde você está durante a entrevista. So yeah, and then my last thing, with time and practice, you'll get more comfortable. It'll become more easy. So yeah, try to observe people using it and start to use it yourself e vai tornar mais confortável.